Hi guys, and welcome to the fabric crown sewing tutorial. This pattern is available at the link below and it goes perfectly with our free wand pattern, which we also have a video for. This pattern is super quick to make and is great for kids' birthday parties, and you can embroider on the front or add pom-poms or customize it in any way you like. First up, we're going to cut out our pattern pieces. So we're going to start with the lining, which we need one of, the batting or wadding, it's the same thing. And this is the low loft batting, which means it's quite thin. And then we're going to cut out one of the main fabric. Now, if your main fabric is quite thin, like thin cotton or linen, you may want to interface the main fabric, or even both, the main and the lining, if it's really thin, just to stop the seams from showing through. But I'm not going to do that on this one because this velvet is thick enough to hold its shape. Then we're also going to cut two of the band pieces if you decide to make the band. Otherwise, you can also use ribbon. And as you can see, I've just cut off 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch off each side of the batting. And you want to do this too, as this will help reduce bulk later on. So we're going to place our layers together in the following order. First is the lining with the right side facing up. In the middle, we're putting the main with the right side facing down. We want to line those up nice and neatly. And then on the top, we're placing the batting. There is no right or wrong side, so don't worry too much about that. We're going to line up those points. Then we're going to pin it in place around the perimeter. It helps to pin it in each dip and each point, as well as maybe 4 or 5 pins down the bottom. If you're a new sewer and you're a little unsure, you can also use a washable marker to mark this seam here at 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter, as well as the seam along the top, also at 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter. And then we're going to sew along the top and the bottom, but we're going to keep this side and this side open. If you haven't sewn corners before, sew the straight line, and then when you reach the bottom here, you have the needle in the fabric in the down position, and then you lift your foot and you rotate until you have your straight line again. And then you put the foot back down and continue sewing until you reach the top point. And then once again, you put the needle in the down position so it's in the fabric, lift your foot and rotate it again. And this will give you a nice sharp edge. So your crown should be looking something like this. And don't worry too much if the fabric moved a little bit or it's puckering just a little bit. You won't notice that when you turn it the other way around. So now we're wanting to reduce bulk. So we're going to cut straight off the top of all of these points here. And we're going to snip these corners as well. So starting at these corners. I'm going to cut straight across. Make sure you don't nick the sewing line though. We just want to get as close as we can to that line without cutting through it. And we're also going to snip in these corners here so it sits nice and flat when we turn it the other way around. So once again, we're going to snip close to that seam line, but we don't want to cut it. Now, to reduce the bulk even further, we're going to snip this batting as close to the seam as we can. And we're going to do it along the bottom as well, but we want to make sure we don't snip any of the fabric. Doesn't have to be super neat. We're just trying to get rid of some of this bulk here. Now, the final step to reduce bulk is to snip just the top seam to about 6 millimeters or 1/4 of an inch. We don't need to do this to the bottom seam though. And doing all this just helps it sit much nicer. And I'm just going to flip that over and cut the other side just because I'm right-handed and it's much easier doing it that way. Now it's time to turn our crown the right way out, and if you have interfacing and you find it's quite stiff, you may like to just fold or roll up your points a couple of times and put a clip on there. So I'm just going to do it to show you, because this will make turning it the right way out a bit easier. And one more. So we want to find the mane and the lining and turn it out through there. We don't want to touch the wadding at all. So we're just going to gently and slowly turn this side out. And once you get to a clip, you'll just take that off. So once you've turned it the right way out, it's going to look a bit wonky like this, but that's okay because we have our trusty chopstick handy, and we're going to get in there and push out the points. You can do it at the start with your fingers. Just get your one finger in there, just like that. We want a nice point on all of them. Obviously, if you're using linen or cotton and you have interfacing, this is going to be a sharper point, but with velvet, it's more of a rounded point. And if you're struggling, you may need to go, to one side or the other side of this wadding in here. And if it's pinching here in the corner, if it's puckering really badly, you may not have snipped enough. So you may need to turn it the wrong way out again and re-snip that. But I think this one will come out with some ironing. It just needs a bit of a press. So we're going to go ahead and press our crown, and we want to make sure this seam at the bottom is nice and flat. And if it's curved up a little bit like this one, you can just pull that straight and give it a good press. Now, if you're using velvet like I am, you don't want to put the iron straight onto the velvet because it will flatten all the little hairs and it's very hard to make it look good again. So the trick to ironing velvet is to get another piece of velvet, just a scrap piece from what you've cut from, and we're going to put that right side together. So you got all the hairs touching each other, and then we're going to press onto that. And that's the trick to ironing velvet. So this is all nice and ironed. And as you can see, I probably could have cut it a little bit closer to the seam in these corners, but I'm going to let that go for the sake of this tutorial. So it's a little bit tricky, but we're going to fold in these edges 1 centimeter or 3 inches. And the main fabric is going to be neatly wrapped around this wadding, because remember we cut it a little bit shorter. So if you fold that over there, it doesn't have to be exact. You just want it to be a straight line. We're going to pin that one in place. And then we're going to push this seam to one side and also fold that over like this. And pins or clips are going to be your friend here. Push the seams towards the lining. We're going to fold that over too. Just like that. And then when we close it, when we straighten and close it, the lining should neatly match up. Aha. Just like that. And we're going to pin this in place. So you can use the iron or the warmth of your fingers just to maneuver that into place and create a nice square edge like that. Just going to make sure that's even. There we go. Make sure that's in there. Right. There we go. And so it should be nice and straight. Push that in a bit more. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to do this on the other side as well, but don't sew anything just yet. Now, if you decide to do a ribbon closure, you're going to need 2 lengths of ribbon, and this is gross grain ribbon, which is great because when it's cut on the diagonal, it doesn't fray very easily and you don't have to finish it. Other ribbons you may need to finish on one of the ends by folding it over a couple of times and doing a little stitch, but I wouldn't worry if you're using this type of ribbon. So what you want to do is you want to grab a couple of lengths and you want it to be about 1 inch thick or 2 or 3 centimeters wide and long enough to tie a bow, but you don't want it too long that it's going to be dangerous if your child wraps it around their neck. So just be mindful of that. And if you would like to do the elastic method, the elastic band method, I'm going to go through that in just a second. So we're going to grab a length, insert it into that seam at least 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch. Make sure it's straight and then we're going to edge stitch. I'm going to edge stitch down this seam here, and we're going to repeat that on the other side. Now your fabric may be thick on the corners, so you just want to go nice and slow, and maybe even go over this a couple of times if you want it to be extra sturdy. For the elastic band method, we're going to take the two pieces that we cut earlier, one of the main and one of the lining. These can be in the same color or different colors, it doesn't really matter too much. And then we're going to place them with right sides together. And we're going to sew along the long edge on each side with a 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter seam allowance. So it should look a little something like this, and we're going to turn it out and press it. But if you have quite thick fabric like I do, I'm just going to quickly snip these corners to make the next step a little bit easier. I'm going to turn this in the right way out. Once again, you can use your chopstick if you like. We're just going to press it. So we're going to insert a safety pin to one side, and we're going to push this through the middle. Keep going until it's nearly through on the other side. And we're going to just line that up in the middle here. Make sure that's nice and flat. You can even have it poking out a little bit if you desire. Pin that in place. And we're going to sew down near the edge just to hold this elastic in place. So you can see I've just sewn that close to the edge, back and forth a couple of times to hold it in place. And then we're going to pull the safety pin until the other side comes through. And we're going to do the same on this side. So we're going to get rid of that safety pin and make sure you don't let go of this. Make sure that's lined up in the middle, and we're going to do the same on this side. So it should look a little something like this, and you can either leave it like this, or what I prefer to do so it's evenly distributed is to stretch that elastic, and we're going to sew directly down this middle line here. And what that's going to do is it's going to sew along the fabric and the elastic and evenly distribute that gathering. So what you want to do is you want to set yourself up with the machine and put your needle directly in the middle here. And we're going to stretch this straight, but we don't want to tug forwards or backwards. So we don't want to bend the needle. What we want to do is we want to feel how fast the machine is going and slowly pull or guide the fabric along, just keeping it straight. And if you're not confident to do that, something else you can do if you want a similar effect is measure how wide your elastic is. And before you insert the elastic, you can sew a line down either side and thread the elastic through that channel. And you'll need a smaller safety pin, but then it won't be exactly evenly distributed, but it would be better than just having it loose. So that is also another option. So to finish off this crown, we're going to use the exact same method we did for the ribbon, and we're going to insert our elastic band piece, 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter into the seam, making sure that it is evenly distributed from the top and the bottom. You can use a measuring tape if you like, but I'm just going to eyeball that. Pin that into place. And in the other side as well. And we're going to sew down this edge, just along the edge, and we can even go over it a couple of times if you want it to be a bit stronger. And then I'm going to come back with our finished crown. And here you have it, your very own fabric, elastic back, reversible crown.